Hello and welcome to our Planetary interaction tutorial for setting up Tier 2 product single planet chains. So we're going to be making Tier 2 products and we're going to be doing it on a single planet. It's actually a lot simpler than it sounds, so we'll just get right to it. We're going to be making nanites. Now you'll notice here I'm sitting in a POS, a base, and guess what? We don't ever have to leave here. It's a little trick. Access storage, go here to our corporate hangar array, grab one barren control center, and make sure it's in your inventory on your ship. And that's all you need to do, because now you merely right click on empty space and then left click on the planet you want to view in planet mode, and believe it or not, there's no need to actually travel to the planet. Now our first step is to figure out where we want to put this. So we're going to the Scan tab, and the two things to make nanites that you need, this is going to be different of course depending on the product you're trying to make, but I know that it's base metals and microorganisms. So let's scan down base metals first. Just move your sensor scan here until you get a little bit of white. There we go. Not too much because you don't want to be confused. And you're going to look around to see where your hottest spots are. Now that is clearly the best spot on the planet. But is it near a lot of microorganisms? Well, we don't know. So let's now center that so it's easy to remember where it is. And then change, and oh boy, look at that. Pretty far from those microorganisms are down there. And I want to see how big of a deposit that is, and actually the deposit's way down there. So I'm not really liking that, even though there are a lot of base metals here. I'm not liking that one as much. So now we adjust our scanner again so we get that, and I'm going to keep looking around my planet for better hotspots. So let's see if there's any microorganisms near that one. And again, pretty far away. So now what I'm going to do is look for big spots of microorganisms and work backwards, because that would seem to be easier. Now here's a nice big juicy area of microorganisms. Let's center that and look for base metals and readjust, and it does appear as though I have a fairly close concentration of base metals right down there. So now if I center that and go back to my microorganisms, as long as there's microorganisms within about that much distance, and oh my, yes, there are. There's a lot. So that is going to be my spot. Now where you want to place your command center is going to be sort of between them. So that's where the deposit of base metals were. This is the microorganisms. I'm going to put my command center just about there. So go back over to your build tab, left click, command center, barren command center, and we're going to place it right there. Alright, very good. Now the first thing you want to do is go in here and upgrade. Do that before you do anything else. I have command center upgrades to level 5, so I'm going to go ahead and upgrade it fully. And you must submit your changes or you won't be able to add additional things. So there we go. Now strangely enough, we're not going to build or connect this to anything. It does not have to be connected to anything. The thing we're going to really need is a spaceport, and that I'm going to put right next to it, even though it's going to be unconnected. So there we go. There's my launch pad. And I just want to submit this, go back to scan, and double check my base metal locations. Yeah. So they're right here on both sides. So that's perfect. Okay. Now, knowing my skills and having done this before, I'm going to be wanting to build 8 basic industry and 3 barren advanced industries. So here we go. Now the way you want to do this is to put them directly in a line, and you want them absolutely as close as you possibly can get. So just as soon as that turns gray, you know you can place it. And kind of inch it up. Having a sensitive mouse helps here. I like to keep them in a nice row. If you're spanning a gap between two slightly separate deposits of resources, this is also an inexpensive, as far as energy consumption, way to span the distance, because if you span it with links, you're actually wasting a lot of power. But if you span it by the buildings themselves, it's kind of like getting a freebie. Okay, 2 more. There we go, and 1 more. There. Now, just to keep things nice and organized, I like to put my advanced industries jutting out from the center. You could put them on the ends, but it gives you less room for expansion later. And we're going to go with just 2 for now. Okay. Now, our extractor control units, 1 goes on the end here, and that's obviously the one we're going to use for the resource that's up high. And 1 goes on the end here, and that's going to easily cover these resources here. Now, you can't see this obviously because I'm only showing you what's going on the screen, but I'm going to hold down the control button and left click, release control, right click, left click. Hold down control, left click, release control, left click, and so on till I've connected all of these things. Alright, and you'll notice I did not connect the command center. That would be an extra link, and you don't need it. So we're going to submit that. And the very first thing I like to do is get my extractors going. So we've already set the scan so it shows the best deposits of base metals. Let's go down here and click on survey. Then you select your base metals. And we should have enough power for 4 extractor heads on each one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, how long should you set this for? Extraction area size also adjusts your time. I have played around with it, and I'm really like 1 hour, 1 day and 8 hours. So you'll notice over here it says 1 day and 8 hours. Now, you can certainly set it for less. You'll notice that at about half that much is when it starts to really drop off in production. But you don't want to have to change it that often. You got to move these extractor heads to where your concentrations of products are. There we go. Make sure they don't overlap. It'll tell you if they do. And I'm having a little trouble. There we go. Getting that. So, and you can see up here what level of production you're getting with these. Move them around, and that's good. So we're going to install program, and now it's already mining for us as soon as you hit submit. Let's do the other one first, but before I go here, you want to change your scan settings to scan for the thing that you're going to be installing. It's kind of an oversight in the programming. See, because right now it's giving us a much too broad scan. So we're going to narrow that until the white areas are smaller, and clearly that's a concentration. I also have my scanning skills up pretty high, so I can narrow that down. Now you go back over to just go ahead and submit that, and we will go to our microorganisms tab, and now it's going to scan or show us those deposits with the same scanner settings that you just had. So it's really important you do that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Change the extraction size to 1. 1 day and 8 hours. And then move your extraction heads over the nice rich deposits. Ooh my. This is a much richer area. You'll notice how high those are. So probably in a day or two what I'm going to end up doing is coming back and taking one of these off and adding additional one for mining the metals. Install program and submit changes. Now, the very first thing we do now, after having gotten our extractors running, is to route what they're going to be making. And where we're going to route them to is here. Everything goes here before it goes anywhere else. And you'll see why we do it that way in a second. So you can click on the Products tab, double-click on Microorganisms, double-click on your Command Center, and you're done. And click Submit. Same thing with this one. Double-click on your base metals, double-click on your Launchpad, and click Submit. So now everything these make is bypassing the factories and going here. And it just works so much cleaner that way because this acts as a buffer to be able to get your factories. Now this is the one that's mining microorganisms. So each one of these we're going to set to do bacteria. Double-click, double-click, double-click. Single-click, double-click, double-click, double-click. Double-click, 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 single-click, single-click, double, double, double. And now I have all of these making bacteria. Over here, these ones are going to be for reactive metals. So we actually have to kind of scroll to get down to reactive metals. Double-click, double-click, double-click. I'm going to stop saying that now because it's probably getting annoying. So here we go. And 2 more to go and we can move on to the next step. Alright, click Submit. So those are all of our basic factories. But of course, at this point, none of them are receiving resources yet. But let's go ahead and do our advanced installations first. And we're going to have them make nanites. It helps if you can alphabetize. Again, double-click and route. And double-click, double-click, double-click. Okay, and we submit that. Now what we want to do is get our resources to these factories so they can start working. However, we don't have anything in storage yet to route. And you could, if there was stuff already in storage, create the route from here, but there isn't. So we have to go onto the Routes tab. And the first one we'll do is these ones that are making bacteria. Those need microorganisms. So you left-click once, click on your first installation, click Create Route, and then rinse and repeat. Make sure, and this is important, that when you go back to here, you always look for this incoming, outgoing. We want to click on the incoming from the factories. We do not want to click on one of the outgoing ones that we've already created, otherwise it'll mess everything up. Create route, and select the second factory, and create route. And I almost did what I just said not to do. Okay. And you see why it's easier if you keep these in a line, because you can just sort of count up the line as you're making these selections. Microorganisms, create route, and number 4. And there we go. Submit. Now we're going to do our Base metals, again, click on the launch pad, go to routes, scroll down until you can see the incoming base metals. There it is. I went way too far. Create route. Bam, bam. Base metals. And we do number 2. And this should be pretty easy from now on. All right. So now we got all our basic ones going. And the last complicated part here is to go to your center. And now each one of these needs 2 different things. So we'll see input, it needs bacteria, and it needs reactive metals because it's an advanced facility. So you click on that, click on bacteria, create route, and select your first factory. And I just like to do them in order of, so I'll do bacteria twice in a row, 1 to the first factory, 1 to the second factory. Then I do reactive metals, which is going to be down near the bottom. Create route, factory number 1, and lastly, factory number 2. And create route and submit. And that is pretty much that. Now it does look, if we go over to the build menu, I might have enough left over for another advanced factory, and you're going to have to wait and see how much these produce, how efficient it is, play around with whether you need the same number of extractor heads for each commodity. But I have found that often I end up having to add another factory. And you can also, of course, if you don't have the energy output to do that, you can remove extractor heads. But basically, there it is. One of the most efficient, energy conservative structures for Tier 2 product planetary interaction on a single planet. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I will do one for a couple other products so you can see that as well. Cheers.